Hey guys, hey, Michelle here with Michelle Beckner Family Wellness. Happy to be live again, another Monday night. This week we'll be talking, it'll be our second week of our Starting Solid series, which will be probably a 4-week long series. So today we're going to be talking about packing foods for on the go, whether it's for daycare or just like stuff to have in your bag for snacks or for like if you're home with the kids and you want to pack lunches to go, whatever, just making things easy for prepping for food on the go. So I'll give everybody a second to join. Let me make sure I'm in the right group. Yeah, okay. And if you have any questions along the way, please let me know. I think I forgot my phone. Shoot. I always like to have that with me so I have stuff on both, on 2 different technologies so I can make sure I'm keeping up with stuff because sometimes I can't see questions. I don't know what's wrong. If you're watching, say hi and where you're from or whatever, how old your baby is. I always like to hear about everybody's babies and little ones. So yeah, just come on and say hi. So like I said, we're going to be talking about packing food for on the go. Yeah, and I feel like, well, first of all, starting solids is like one of my favorite things to talk about. Last week I talked for probably 40 minutes and I feel like I didn't give nearly enough information. I feel like I packed everything in too quickly. So hopefully if you watched last week, you got something out of it, or if you missed it, go ahead and definitely give it a watch because it's got a lot of information in it. It's just like a lot packed in 40 minutes, but hopefully it'll get some good stuff for you. So I had a few questions. So I thought last time I kind of gave my whole, like everything I wanted to say about starting solids and then answered questions. Today is more answering questions, even though I've got like 2 or 3 ahead of time. So if you have any in the meantime, please let me know. And then today, in between like dropping my daughter off at camp and like trying to pack because we're moving, like in between all my little things, I kept like writing little notes. So I have notes on like random piece of paper from my purse and in my journal. So like, I've got a few things that I want to talk about. And I think what I want to do is make this into, I think I want to make like a little printable for you guys that will help go through some of the stuff that we're talking about today. So hopefully I can make that happen. And also I feel like a lot of what we're talking about today applies to what we're going to be talking about for the August topic of the Nourish Moms community. I haven't nailed down the name yet, but I think another thing I was brainstorming today while I was writing notes from scraps of paper, it's going to be something about like doing it all or prioritizing or just like getting things done without going crazy will be what we're talking about in August. So if you're not part of the Nourish Moms community, I'll put the link to the Facebook group below. So I won't spend too much time talking about it, but the Facebook group is only part of the Nourish Moms community, and it's actually a very new part of it. It's only been around for a month. The rest of it is on a separate membership platform, and also you get special emails from me once a week. But anyway, for the month of August, for anyone who's interested, especially if this kind of stuff that we're talking about today is helpful for you, sorry. If the stuff we're talking about today is helpful for you, then you might really like our topic for August in the Nourish Moms community. So what I'm doing is you can join the Facebook group for free for the month of August. Just let me know if you want to join. Like I said, I'll post the link. And that's only a very small part of the membership, but at least you'll kind of get a gist for what it's like. And you'll get to see, I do a monthly live call sort of like this with the Nourish Mommies in the group. So you'll get access to that. You just won't get access to all of like the printables and like every little, and the emails and things like that. But anyway, if this kind of stuff is cool to you and you feel like you want to dive a little bit more into it, the Nourish Moms community for the month of August will be great for you. Okay, so again, if you're watching, say hi. I've seen a few people come on and off. So I'd love to know if people are watching. Say hi or do an emoji or something. All right, let me pull up the questions. So I have a question from Kristen, and she said, what are your favorite lunch? Oh, okay. What are your favorite lunch boxes for fresh foods? Kristen says she loves Planet Box, but she would love to hear about others. Honestly, I just use Planet Box is great. Like I've seen them a ton, and if someone were to ask me like for a good non-plastic, eco-friendly, durable lunchbox, I would recommend Planet Box just by like what I've seen and how many people I've seen using it. But we just use. Hi, Christina. Thanks for saying hi. We just use. I mean, a lot. So I've been a full-time working mom. With my kids full-time in daycare, and I've also been a stay-at-home mom, which I am now. Stay-at-home, work-from-home mom, which has its own complications, right? So I've kind of seen both worlds. So when my kids were in daycare, they wouldn't let us bring glass, and I didn't like stainless steel all the time because they could heat up their foods in daycare. A lot of times daycares will heat up food, right? So I packed it in plastic, which is horrible, but it was the only thing that they could put in the microwave that wasn't glass, if they wouldn't allow glass. So I tried to not do too much stuff that needed to be heated up. But anyway, I had one of those like divided plastic containers that worked pretty well for us, and especially for cold foods. But I would definitely not recommend a plastic lunchbox. So now what we do, we have like those glass lock containers, and that's what I do whether I'm packing lunches or snacks or whatever for like a picnic at the park, or if we're going out for the day and having lunch somewhere that we're bringing, which we usually try to bring lunch. I'll just pack like a bunch of those glass lock containers for myself and the kids, and then bring like, I have like a little insulated tote that I'll bring it in. So that kind of works for us. My daughter's in camp like a few weeks this summer, and I do the same thing, just like a couple little glass containers in a little lunchbox for her. Works for us. But once my kids are in school, like full time, then I'll probably invest in something like Planet Box or anyway. So Kristen, long answer to your question. But I don't really have like any recommendations that I've used personally, but I would love to hear if anybody watching has tried anything different other than a Planet Box that they would recommend. And I wanted to like spend some time kind of researching stuff off of some websites and bloggers that I truly trust as far as like low tox and like just packing healthy foods and stuff, but I didn't get a chance. So this is when the community can get together, and if anybody has a good lunchbox recommendation for Kristen or anything that you really like that you use, let us know in the comments. I would love to hear it too. Okay, I think that was all Kristen's question for that. All right, and then Kristen had another question. How do you keep things simple and fast to prep or pack while avoiding lots of prepackaged and processed foods? And then she asked if packing is every day. Are there certain things you can make ahead of time that will last for the week to help streamline things? So I think that is a super, super question. Actually, you know what I'm gonna do, Kristen? Even though I'm not sure you're watching live right now, I'm gonna use that one to kind of dive into what I wanna talk about today. So I'm gonna skip that one and go to Bethany's questions because that's a little bit shorter answer. So hi, Bethany, if you're watching. And Kristen and Bethany, I believe, are both in the Nourish Moms community. So if you have questions about it, ask them how they like it. So Bethany, what breakfast can I make ahead for me and my 9-month-old? So Bethany is dairy-free, soy-free, and gluten-free. So I was happy to hear you're not egg-free because I've dealt with that. My son, we're sort of reintroducing eggs to him, and he seems to be doing okay if we do them maybe once a week. So the egg-free thing is difficult, but I can still talk about egg-free breakfast. But yeah, some things that I kind of brainstormed for you, Bethany, which, I mean, it's nothing like super like out of the ordinary that you probably haven't thought of before, but these are things that are kind of in our like regular rotations that work for us. Obviously overnight oats, those are like super trendy right now, and for pretty good reason. I mean, oats aren't like my favorite go-to breakfast because, especially for me, I don't like carbo loading in the morning, and most people in general, like if you start paying attention, you'll probably notice that you do better with more carbs later in the day. If you're nursing, you can probably handle carbs like a ton all day long, but just know that oats are like, you know, pretty carb heavy. So with overnight oats, what I like to do, add in a ton of chia seeds because then you've got good protein and those good healthy, oh, hi Bethany, those good healthy omega-3s, which are super, super important, especially if your baby's got skin issues or any sort of gut issues. Upping omega-3s is like something that I work with all my clients. So if you're doing overnight oats, throw in a ton of chia seeds, use whatever milk works for you, or you can just do water. I usually make homemade almond milk, so for whatever reason I didn't get to it, I'll just do applesauce and water with oats and chia seeds. So the applesauce sweetens it. Oh, and a ton of cinnamon. The applesauce and cinnamon kind of sweeten it, and then the chia seeds kind of bulk it out. So you stay fuller for longer. Otherwise, I'll do a mashed banana to sweeten it. So if you know me at all, you know that I'm totally not into added sugar when it doesn't need to be added. So breakfast is definitely a time of day where we don't really want that much added sugar. It's just setting us up, our guts up, and our bodies and our minds up for not the best day. So if you have added sugar in the morning or too much sugar in the morning, that's what you're going to want the rest of the day, and that's no good, right? So sweeten it naturally, not too much. So I'll do 1 whole banana. I'll mash it and make like a big, I don't even measure it, so sorry, but I have like a big round like Corningware thing. So I'll mash 1 banana in it, dump in a bunch of oats and chia seeds, and then almond milk or water or a mix of the two, and a ton of cinnamon. Stir it all up, let it sit overnight, and that'll last us maybe, it'll last us for the week. So maybe like 2 or 3 servings for the kids that week, if that makes sense. So we'll have oatmeal 2 or 3 times a week. We like to add then fresh or frozen berries to the oatmeal because they're super healthy. And I personally, if I have it, I like to add peanut butter or almond butter to my oatmeal. I think it's yummy. So overnight oats, those are something that you can definitely prep ahead of time for you and your little one. Pancakes and waffles. So I know you said you're gluten-free, but there's tons of gluten-free pancake and waffle recipes. I feel like they turn out pretty good. You might take some trial and error to find one that you like. And Bethany, let me know if you haven't found a pancake recipe, gluten-free one that you like, and I can get you one. But what I was, oh yeah. So maybe about once a week on the weekends, I'll make I'll double like a big batch of pancakes. So I'll be like making pancakes forever, but then they freeze pretty easily, and then you can just pop out like a couple for breakfast later on in the week. So that's another option. And then, yeah, sometimes, I mean, on the weekends, yeah, we put syrup, a little bit of syrup on our waffles, but a lot of times I like to make like a berry syrup. Like I'll take frozen blueberries or frozen mixed berries and kind of melt them down with some cinnamon and vanilla, maybe some ghee or coconut oil if you can't do ghee. And then that'll make like a kind of sweet syrup to put on your pancakes. And then again, peanut butter, any kind of nut butter, add some sweetness too. So if your kids aren't already used to doing syrup, then that's a great option to just get them used to having it sweetened with fresh fruit. And since you're not egg free, love having like veggie egg scrambles, like whether it's an omelet or frittata or quiche, whatever you want to call it. They're all kind of the same thing. So basically you can load up as many vegetables, whatever vegetables you have, whatever's in season, and then kind of bulk it out with eggs. So that's a excellent, excellent breakfast as long as you are okay with eggs. If you're a little sensitive to histamines, like myself, I'm a little sensitive to eggs and definitely sensitive to histamines. I can only do eggs maybe 2, maybe 3 times a week. So something to pay attention, especially if you're giving them to your little one, even if they're not allergic or sensitive to them. If you seem like you have kind of an egg heavy diet, like you have eggs multiple days in a row, and then maybe some symptoms start to pop up, just keep an eye out for that kind of stuff. But yeah, like a frittata, you can totally make ahead of time. Make it in like a big casserole dish or a big skillet or whatever, and then you can put it in the refrigerator for the week. And you can even freeze it. Like I'll freeze like egg cups sometimes for my husband, and then they're not as good reheated, but they're not bad. They just get the texture gets a little chewy or gummy. I don't know. Rubbery, that's the word. And then another thing is chia pudding. Bethany, I don't know if you've tried chia pudding at all, but it's basically chia seeds soaked in like almond milk or whatever sort of milk alternative that you use. And then it makes sort of like a yogurty, puddingy type texture. So if you just Google chia pudding, there's tons of good recipes out there. Again, just sweeten it with like cinnamon and vanilla or some fruit, fresh or frozen fruit. That's a good way to do it too. So, and then of course, chia pudding is something that can be prepped ahead of time because it actually takes a while to make. So Bethany, I hope those are some good ideas for breakfast that can be made ahead of time. Overnight oats, make sure you add some chia seeds in there to kind of bulk it out so it's not all carbs. Some gluten-free pancakes or waffles. I feel like they're pretty easy to make dairy-free or egg-free, and then when it gets gluten-free, you gotta, kind of find the recipe or the flour blend that you like. For some sort of frittata or omelet or egg cups, whatever you want to call them, whatever's the easiest way for you to make them. Load in whatever vegetables you have. Those can be delicious. And chia pudding. And you know what? One thing I didn't write down, you can make, like I made this for dinner tonight. We had burgers and I just made like a huge skillet of hash. So chopped up, I did white potato, 2 sweet potatoes, green pepper, onion, and then I actually finely chopped up a bunch of spinach and made a big hash. So that makes a super good, like you can have it, make a ton of it for dinner and then have it as leftovers for breakfast or lunch. Add in some breakfast meat if you want. So that's another good option too, especially if you're egg free. So, okay. So a lot of my tips definitely involve like making a lot of food at once. That's something I talk about a lot with my clients when we're trying to figure out like, adjusting to the new diet and like finding time to cook dinners and all that kind of stuff. Double or triple whatever you're making. At first, it may seem crazy that you're making so much food, but it'll be so nice. You can have some leftover as for a freezer meal, some leftover for lunches or breakfast for the week. So just make a ton of whatever you're making because it's not that much extra work as far as like prepping and cooking and cleanup when you're just making a bigger recipe. So once you get used to kind of dealing with the quantities, it's a great way to do it. So let me know if that's all making sense, if anybody got some good stuff out of that. And now I'll jump into, how long have I been live? 17 minutes. All right, these starting solids things take a while. I usually like to cut off at 20 minutes because I know everyone's busy, but I want to make sure I get your questions answered, then I help you guys. So back to Kristen's question, which I think is a great question. How do you keep things simple and fast to prep or pack while avoiding lots of prepackaged and processed foods? And then if packing is every day, are there certain things you can make ahead of time that will last for the week to help streamline things? Okay, so we definitely don't do a lot of processed foods in our house. And I'm not saying that because I think I'm like better than people who do processed foods. We've just kind of found like what works for us. And this is kind of like what I want to talk to you guys about today is I could just tell you like, oh, we do this and this and this and this, or this is like the healthiest way to do it or whatever. But we need to find something that works for you and your family, right? So everybody's going to have like their own sort of mix of like, we want to lean towards the whole, fresh, unprocessed foods as much as possible, but everybody's lifestyle and family is different. So we need to find what works. And what's most important is we need to find why that works. So if you are doing a lot of like processed and prepackaged foods, but you feel horrible about it, then that's not so good, right? So we need to find like the balance of, feeling good about what you're feeding your kids and like really feeling like deep down, like there's a purpose to, maybe the little bit of extra time that goes into prepping fresh foods versus buying processed foods, like really understanding like why that's important to you, which shouldn't be too, on the surface level, it's like, well, I want my kids to be healthy, right? But like, if you can dig like a few more levels deeper than that, and everyone's why will be a little bit different, but that's a really great place to start. And then you can kind of figure out where to go from there as far as like processed foods and fresh foods, because we all know packaged foods are everywhere. They're impossible to avoid, and they certainly can make things easier. But in the long run, how much is it really worth it, right? First of all, you're going to be spending a lot more money on your grocery budget if you're buying all these packaged foods. That, to be honest, is one of the main reasons I don't buy a lot of processed foods, because I'll look at them and be like, oh, this could be kind of fun for the kids and it's not too bad. The ingredients are okay, like I could deal with it. but I am not paying that much for it. I can make something like this for way cheaper with me liking 100% of the ingredients. So for me, like the cost is definitely one of the things that keeps those processed foods out of my house. And then the cost later in life, right? I mean, we all know there's all kinds of bad stuff in these processed foods. Almost all of them, I think like 80% of the foods in the grocery store have added sugar in them of some sort. Vegetable oils are something that are almost impossible to avoid in packaged foods, which are like incredibly toxic and horrible and rancid and bad for you. So where was I going with that? Anyway, you can, so the long-term cost, like you may not notice it now, like you paying more, but it's convenient. So, time is money, like, okay, that's fine. But in the long run, especially if you have a sensitive baby, you already have to like kind of do a little bit extra to make sure that that their bucket that I've talked about isn't overflowing, so they don't have symptoms. And you want to really, really make sure they get the nourishment they need, so that hopefully they can grow out of their sensitivities, or at least be able to manage them a lot more easily, right? So if you're adding in all this quote unquote bad stuff, then it's going to be a lot harder to overcome, right? So as far as processed foods, okay, what was Kristen's question exactly? How do you keep things simple and fast to avoid processed foods? Okay, so first of all, we want to figure out like what is your true why? Like, why do you want to avoid these processed foods? And it's probably a combination of things. Like, is it the money, like I talked about? Is it you want your kids to be healthy? Is it because your kid is super sensitive and just can't handle a lot of the foods in the grocery store with all the crazy stuff they have added? Really, really spend some time to think about that, and even better, start writing it down. So why is that important to you to avoid it? So that's a great way to do it. All right, I feel like I keep getting off track. Sorry, people. So how to keep things simple. So first way to keep things simple is understand why you're doing what you're doing, okay? Second thing, I have them in a different order in my notes, so order doesn't matter too much. Let's spend some time thinking about when we're going to make this work for us. Is it something that is just gonna be part of your nightly like routine? Like, are you gonna prep stuff for lunches every night? Are you gonna do it in the mornings? Or are you gonna do, like Kristen asked, some stuff that you can prep for a week ahead of time? So really take an honest look at your schedule and your lifestyle and figure out, okay, these are the times that I'm gonna prep my kids' lunches. And it doesn't mean that like, we don't want it to be like, okay, something came up and now you can't do it and now everything's out of whack. If you at least get into some sort of a rhythm and you're, like I said, making extras of stuff and you have stuff on hand in case things like that come up, then it'll be easier to get back into your rhythm again, right? So really look at your schedule, really look at your lifestyle, and figure out what those times are that you're going to be able to prep those foods. What was I gonna say? Oh, and when I'm saying look at your schedule, look at your lifestyle, if you're like, oh my God, I have absolutely no time, like I don't even have time to like unload the dishwasher every day or whatever, then that means you just really even more need to take a look at your schedule and figure out what your priorities are. So go back to why this is important to you, cooking or prepping and packing fresh foods for you and your children. And then figure out what is in your life right now that's maybe not as important to you, that you can either spend less time on or cut it out completely. So really thinking about priorities and what's important to you and why it's important to you, that'll really help you figure out how to fit this stuff in your day. And we'll definitely, like I said earlier, dive into a lot of this stuff for our Nourish Moms community topic, as far as like prioritizing and really just making sure that like every moment of your day is spent on something that is important to you, okay? So that's my next step or my next tip. Some things that you can prep ahead of time, or yeah, okay, I'll talk about that now because I think that's what she asked. There are certain things you can make ahead of time. So I guess I've kind of already answered that. If you're making anything, make a ton of it so you can have stuff in the freezer or the fridge for the week. Some things that I like to kind of almost always have on hand are roasted or steamed vegetables. So my kids almost always have like steamed or roasted sweet potatoes or carrots, which my daughter loves. Or we pretty much always have frozen peas in the freezer, which my son loves, so I can heat those up real quick. And those can both be packed on the go, like super easy. You don't have to worry about warming them or keeping them cold or whatever. So any kind of roasted vegetables or steamed. Raw vegetables are great too if your kid, neither of my kids are super into like raw veggies and dip. My son will do cucumbers and hummus, but that's about it. But if your kids like raw veggies with hummus, or some kind of dip, like you can make like a homemade ranch dip really pretty easily. Oh, but you guys are dairy free, so it wouldn't be as good. You can do it with mayonnaise. Anyway, if your kids like raw veggies, then that's super easy too. Other things to prep ahead of time. I like making, especially in the summer, like if we're going to the beach or something, I love making like a tuna salad, but I'll do half tuna, half chickpeas. And that's delicious. And if you can't do mayo, my husband doesn't like mayo, so we'll just do like hummus kind of as the dressing part of it, I guess. If you can do eggs, then an egg salad is good, or a chicken salad is super. So you can roast up a whole chicken, have some of it for dinner, and then use the leftover for a chicken salad. Those are great things that you can prep for the week. Prepared fruit, so like cut up fruit. We almost always have applesauce on hand. Pasta salad is another easy thing. You can kind of prep ahead of time, have it for dinner one night, make a ton of it, and then, have the leftovers for lunches. And then, any kind of like good quality meats like sausages or burgers or chicken drumsticks or whatever. If you're making it for dinner, make extra with the intent that it's going to be lunches for the week. So I hope that's kind of helpful. Okay, so those are just some ideas. Like I said, I could just sit here all night and like spew out ideas, but I really want to give you the homework of thinking this through yourself. Because if you're just sitting here, even if you're like taking notes and you're like, oh, Michelle's awesome, this is some great ideas. You want to go through it yourself, because number one, you'll find things that really work for you and your family. Number two, if you're like fully going through, like using your brain, going through this yourself, writing it down, you're going to be a little bit more invested in it, right? And it's going to like actually happen and work for you. So yeah, those are just some of my ideas, but definitely go through and think of that yourself. So far I've given you kind of 2 steps, right, for prepping things. One, and again, I have them in a different order in my notes. Let me see. One is thinking about, why is this important for you to spend the time preparing healthy, fresh foods for you and your kids. 2, when and how are you going to fit this into your schedule? Are there certain things that need to move or be shifted around so that you can really prioritize this? And then 3, so what I was saying, like, I can give you some examples, but I want you to do this yourself. Think about, what does your baby or your kid like or has liked before, right? Because it's always changing. So brainstorm some ideas, and then start writing them down. And I like to think of, especially lunches, I like to have like categories. So rather than now it's like, other than the food pyramid, then it was like the My Plate or whatever, which, well, I won't even go into that. But so the categories I like to do for lunches are, the main ones are vegetables and protein, and then something crunchy and something sweet. So those are kind of like 4 things that I like to start my brainstorming with. So the protein and the veg are the kind of stuff that you can prep ahead of time, right? Which we kind of already talked about, some examples of how to do that. Sweet, usually some sort of fruit. Sometimes it can be a treat. Another thing I haven't talked about is, I love making like homemade treats. Like today I made a double batch of some zucchini bread that was sweetened with basically just banana and some monk fruit. So basically no sugar in that. So sweet can be like fruit or a home baked treat. Sometimes I'll just put like a square of dark chocolate and some nut butter in my kid's lunchbox, whatever. And then something crunchy, you can do crackers or pretzels. Like that's usually where my concessions come in when it comes to processed food. Like we'll pretty much always have pretzels in the house. Sometimes we'll have crackers in the house, and a few other little things like that, because it's always fun. Oh, and popcorn, if your kid's old enough, that's another great healthy thing if they can do corn. So have those 4 categories. Vegetables first, protein. Those are easy to cook ahead of time when you're cooking dinner. And then something crunchy and something sweet. So I want you to sit down and spend some time brainstorming things that your kid would like in each of those categories. And really don't feel like you need to have so much variety in their lunches. Don't drive yourself crazy. Like if they have the same thing a couple days a week, or if you kind of go off of the same thing every week, then that's okay. So just start coming up with stuff and you can rotate it. And then as your baby grows and things change and evolve and their tastes change and evolve, you can, kind of re-brainstorm those different things. And then the last, like I sort of mentioned, what are your compromise, sometimes convenience foods, and how often will you do them? So like one thing we do is we do cereal Fridays, which I know isn't for packing food, but just for an example. So like cereal is not really part of our diet because it's not the best way to start your day. But on Fridays, the kids get cereal. When they were in daycare and they weren't dairy free anymore, they loved to have pirate booty for a snack on Fridays. So that was their special treat on Fridays. So maybe like once a week, or, find what works for you. Have those like sometimes convenience foods and don't let them become an everyday thing. Another one is like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. My kids will get that every once in a while. I like to save it for a time where I just like either don't have time to prep or just want something special for them that I know that they're going to really like. So sometimes the peanut butter and jelly sandwich is like my convenience food. So think about some of those things and how often do you feel okay with them in your kids' diet and what works for you. So I hope, just going to end it there. I haven't gotten any more questions, I don't think. So I hope that was some good stuff. You guys got a lot out of it. Like I said, I would love to come up with a printable for you guys on those 4 things I talked about, so you can really go through it as some homework. What I'll probably do is make it available in the Nourish Moms Community Facebook group. So you can just join us there, like I said, for free for the month of August. And then if you like it, then you can stick around. It's a paid membership group. So once you get your free trial of the Facebook group, then if you love it, you can pay just the $12 a month to join the full membership group where you get the Facebook group plus all the printables and everything. But this one that I talked about today, hopefully I'll get a chance to create it sometime soon and I'll share it in there. So like I said, I'll post the link to the Nourish Moms Community Facebook group. Anybody is free to join for the month of August, and I would love to see you guys in there. And I actually am about to hop off of this call so I can do my monthly Nourish Moms community call with those ladies. So yeah, I'll see you in there if you're in there. All right, I hope everybody has a good night. And as always, it's good to chat with you.